this continues on. This problem, this war within the Republican Party, and this problem with Republicans continually looking towards anybody to put in positions of power, as long as they sound like they are Donald Trump acolytes, that they are MAGA, even white nationalists. And this is from The Readout. This is MSNBC's Joy Reid show. And a quote from it says, "This is not who we are. Oklahoma town expels neo-Nazi politician who marched in Charlottesville." And I want to play this again. I've said this before. If YouTube might cut this out or force me to cut it out due to copyright because of this, I think it's an important video. It's important to show, so I'm going to play it. But if this doesn't play, you can go to stream.vtip.me and you'll be able to see the full video there. But this is Joy Reid speaking to folks that I really like about what's going on or what happened with this particular case in Oklahoma. And it's instructive because it goes to show just how desperate they are for anyone to save them, because they see the country moving away from them. They see, and when the attack on DEI is an attack on attempts to level the playing field, and they see it as a threat. They see Democrats, blacks, women, gays, transgender, they see all of them as a threat, workers as a threat to them. And that all comes before Donald Trump, and all of that is authoritarian in nature. So let me see if I can play this, and I will talk about it in more detail coming up.
But we begin tonight in Enid, Oklahoma, a town that voted this week to remove City Council member Judd Blevins after local activists discovered that not only did he once lead an Oklahoma chapter of the white nationalist group Identity Europa, which they pretentiously spell with a V where the U should be, but he also was one of the torch-wielding neo-Nazis chanting, "Jews will not replace us," in Charlottesville, Virginia, in August 2017, something NBC News reporter Brandy Zadrozny confronted him about last month.
You were a leader in an Oklahoma chapter of a white nationalist organization, and I want to know if you have any explanation to that.
Then why did you march and unite the right? Why did you hold a tiki torch?
Blevins has somehow denied that he has ever been a white supremacist. But at a candidate forum last week, he said his activism was motivated by the same issues that got Donald Trump elected in 2016. And he also defended marching in Charlottesville, saying he only did it to preserve the precious statues of the Southern troops who went to war against the U.S. military, which he's also a veteran of. Now, you may remember that the march was led in part by a man named Richard Spencer, who does admit proudly to being a white supremacist and who has in the past called for peaceful ethnic cleansing of America and advocated for a white ethno-state, and who, upon Trump's 2016 win, urged his supporters to, quote, to chant "Hail Trump" with their arms raised and party like it's 1933, the year that Hitler came to power in Germany. Spencer was a headline speaker at that 2017 Unite the Right rally, spouting this ideology to an audience of several white supremacist groups, including Identity Europa with a V. But Spencer was also, believe it or not, classmates at Duke University with none other than Stephen Miller, a senior Trump advisor who wrote some of Trump's most inflammatory speeches and who also helped create the family separation policy that led to several migrant babies being ripped from their mother's arms. The two were reportedly members of Duke's conservative union. And when Miller was given the White House role in 2016, Spencer praised him, saying Miller could do, quote, good things for white America. Nowadays, Miller runs an organization called America First Legal, which has filed multiple lawsuits aimed at eviscerating DEI programs and fighting anti-white racism, which Judd Blevins has said is also his purpose as an activist. But back to Richard Spencer for a moment. What he is most known for, other than Charlottesville, is coining the term alt-right, basically as a more palatable way of saying white supremacist. Which brings me to another familiar face, Steve Bannon. Bannon, of course, was co-founder of Breitbart News, which he described as the platform for the alt-right, essentially a safe haven for Spencer and friends. And when Donald Trump ran for president in 2016, Bannon was appointed chief executive officer of his campaign, which ultimately led to a spot as chief strategist in the Trump administration, creating a direct line of white nationalism to the White House, the highest level of government. And, well, you know the rest. This is how white nationalism has become normalized in American politics. Someone like Judd Blevins wouldn't even have been able to get elected in the first place if it weren't for the likes of Donald Trump and his ability to make white supremacy mainstream. I mean, it may be the one thing, besides getting the party of Reagan to love Russia, that he was actually able to do that no one else has. Because this ideology has always existed, and people have tried in the past to implement it in our government many times. But they've all failed because they never have been able to attach this rot to a major political party until now, with Trump's help. And with his help, white nationalism has grafted itself onto the Republican Party with almost zero resistance from Republicans. Republicans just let it happen. And because of that utter cowardice, they have allowed Richard Spencer's dream to become a reality. Joining me now is Brandon.
All right. I want to pause it there. I encourage people to go and take a look at the full video, because they have Stuart Stevens, who I like a great deal, because he's a guy who's one of the best out of the conservative movement, who has come out, wrote a book, and has admitted to the Southern strategy and using the Southern strategy, and has admitted that this is a disaster for the Republican Party, that this is all about race, etc. So take a look at the full video there. I don't have a time to run this whole thing today, because I still want to get to more. But the important part of this video is, number one, what I love that Joy does is she connects the dots. And that's extremely important here, because it's important because the media and the folks who are no longer a part of the Republican Party, like folks in the Bulwark, folks who are in the Lincoln Project may, except for Stuart Stevens and some, may try to let you believe that the party was totally fine until Donald Trump showed on the scene. And through connecting the dots there, we know that the party wasn't fine prior to that the party collapsed under this ideology, was taken over, because it was already within the party. They thought that they could control this thing, in my belief, in order to get votes, particularly in the South, and in order to cleave Democrats, who later would become Republicans, the so-called Dixiecrats. They needed them in order to win back the South after the Civil Rights Movement. And in order to bring them in, they had to bring in these white nationalists. And these white nationalists clung on to the Republican Party, clung on to that three-legged stool that Reagan created. And its ideology, it saved the ideology of white supremacy from oblivion, from being destroyed by this country, and truly creating a sense of a shift, a way of actually having this country really get past and begin to deal and reckon with the legacy of race. Instead, they chose to double down on race and get back to it. And this was created, the seeds were planted after 64, 65 legislations, all the way beginning again with Reagan in 80, moving to today. You know a thing by the way it behaves, and that is the history of the Republican Party. Then you can see with Joy Reid's excellent chart there how this began on the fringes with a guy who's a very fringe guy. This guy, not Nick Fuentes, but I can't think of his name, the Unite the Right guy, who she just mentioned. It begins with him, and it makes its way to Stephen Miller, to Steve Bannon, who was the strategist. That was the name I was trying to think of before, all the way to the White House, Donald Trump. And those people are ascendant today within the Republican Party. And anybody who has, and I've never seen the tech industry in particular, but I've never seen the business industry so willing to join these folks. I mean, it's unbelievable what you're hearing out of Elon Musk, Bill Ackman, what you're hearing out of, well, we already know the Koch brothers were a part of this, but the attacks on Disney, which I want to do a whole video on that at some point in time. But I want to continue this conversation because what's happening with this break within the Republican Party, this civil war that's happened, right? Joy Reid has lined out perfectly just how Donald Trump, how the fringes became a part of the administration. And by the way, we've never seen this before except with white supremacy. That's one reason why we know that America is institutionally racist. It's not just that we have had racist people, that there are a couple of racists out there and we can control them. No, this is an addiction within America. This is something that is to the heart, to the core of America, because there is no way there is no way in the world that you could have, for instance, somebody who believed in, that the white man is the devil and we need to destroy them because of what they've done. There's no way that person could make it all the way to the biggest power, to President of the United States. I mean, it's inconceivable. Number one, because that's not something that anyone of color has ever wanted to do. But number two, the country wouldn't allow it. It would completely stop. Both parties would stop it. But so what you're seeing here is this fight racially, white nationalism versus traditional republicanism, or versus attempts to undo DEI, the attempts to address the issues of race, right? This comes, the Tea Party, this comes after Barack Obama. That's what brings them more ascendant. They start coming into power. The Tea Party is where this whole thing shifts, and you start seeing a shot in the arm on the side of white supremacists. Donald Trump just grabs the ball and runs with it. But also a part of this is anti-Semitism. And this is an article, this is out of the New Republic. And the New Republic is I think a British newspaper, begins in Europe, in the UK, but they have a branch here in the US, and it's an op-ed. But they go into this very interesting, it says the right-wing influencers are fighting over what it means to be white. Candace Owens' bitter split with Ben Shapiro and the rise of Christ is King as an anti-Semitic troll reveals just how weird things have gotten among very online conservatives. And it goes into this very fascinating thing that appears to be happening on the right amongst influencers. You would think these are amongst people who are all are in the same boat. They're all rowing the same direction, that they're all allies. But the white nationalist part of this cannot keep from going after Jews. They just cannot do it. And anybody who really knows the white nationalist movement, the Christian nationalist movement, I should say, which is part of white nationalism, but it has the Christian aspect to it. Anyone who knows it knows that their love of Judaism, or attempts to get Jews back to Israel, has biblical connections to it. And they think that they can get God to do what they want to do, to have the Messiah return, Christ return, and kill all their enemies, and take out Jews as well, convert them to Christianity or die. So they're trying to use Judaism, those who are allies with Israel on what's going on in Gaza and whatnot. But what you have happening here in this particular case, which is interesting, is the attempts to find allies amongst Jewish people who are willing to give Joe Biden a hard way to go if he does not support Israel. The idea of supporting Israel that is on the Christian right, and people who hate Judaism, and people who love Donald Trump, support Donald Trump, but are anti-Semitic, they're at war within their own party. And it's coming out amongst these folks here in the Daily Wire. And it says the very online trolls in the American right have made a habit of turning innocuous things into messages of hate. The OK hand gesture was ruined thus, as was a cartoon green frog. Now respectable Christians might think twice about saying aloud a simple tenet of their religion: Christ is King. And this is from the New Republic Online. It's April 3rd, op-ed by Audrey Claire Farley. And it says they can blame Candace Owens, While Christ is King was co-opted years ago by white nationalist Nick Fuentes and his Groyper movement, who employed it as an anti-Semitic dog whistle. This twisted usage only broke into mainstream discourse last week among Owen's bitter public split with Ben Shapiro's The Daily Wire over her increasing promotion of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. On the surface, this falling out suggests that some prominent conservatives have an uncrossable line when it comes to hate speech, at least against Jews. But the tsunami of support for Owens, the platforming of anti-Semitism by other mainstream conservatives, and the ostentatious praise of or conversion to Christianity by white nationalists and incel types reveal quite the opposite. Right-wing influencers are actually breaking ranks with Jews amid a growing rift about what it means to be white and who gets to claim the badge. Let me just also just reiterate what the battle lines are, or what the alliance is, right? You have on one side Christians who want Jews back in Israel because it's a part of biblical prophecy. On the other hand, you have anti-Semites who are a part of the white nationalist movement, always have been. They hate Jews. They want to see Jews burned because they believe that the Jewish people killed Christ, killed their God, and they hate Jews because of it. Yet, they're Donald Trump supporters who is supported by the GOP, which is a part of the Christian nationalist movement, right? Does it, all of that make sense? I don't know if that completely can come through. I mean, I might have to do a whole episode on just that in another video. But this coalition is fraught from the beginning because it was only a matter of time. This thing could never really survive. But it's only a matter of time because both sides really don't have what is best for Jews, and certainly not what's best for the nation of Israel. And more importantly, the folks in Israel know that, right? They're not stupid. They know exactly what's going on the political right in the GOP here. But they're willing to create bedfellows because the right is willing to arm them and is willing to give them the military aid that they need. But here in Israel, the nation of Israel, particularly under Netanyahu right now, is again, just like with the GOP under Ronald Reagan, they've created this coalition. They think that they can use these people, but it's going to turn out bad for the nation of Israel down the line. But let me continue on this fascinating article. And this is an op-ed. This isn't a report. This is actually an opinion piece. When Christ is King began trending on X late March, some conservative Christians expressed wariness over the phrase weaponization, even as they recognized it as a core belief of their religion. But they were in the minority. The Blaze and Turning Point USA pundit Lauren Chen hosted a live audio show on X to discuss the dust-up with Fuentes and Daily Wire co-founder Jeremy Boring, among other guests, and it was swiftly devolved into a, quote, cesspool of anti-Semitism, in the words of Ben Lorber, a prominent researcher of the American right. A guest popularly known as Sovereign Bra lamented Jews' extraordinary concentration of power in America and described Judaism as satanic. Fuentes said that American Jews shouldn't hold political office and that Shapiro should affirm Christ's kingship. Boring did express concern at Fuentes' statement, but only after praising him as, quote, one of the most talented people out there and saying he regularly listens to his show. Non-Christians on the right have rushed to defend Owens too. Muslim YouTube celebrity Sneeko tweeted Christ is King in what was presumed a gesture to, quote, own the Jews. Businessman, influencer, and accused rapist and human trafficker Andrew Tate posted, quote, as a Muslim, it warms my heart to see the resurgence of spirited Christian declarations. Christ is King, and I pray Christianity regains its strength and protects its societies against the pervasive and constant erosion of morality by the devotees of Satan. Whiteness, masculinity, and Christianity are becoming more tightly yoked in the public imagination, with people hyper-invested in one category, apprehending a need to outwardly invest in the others. These are historically knotted categories. The very concept of race, an outgrowth of gendered Christian thinking about Jews. As scholars like Lindsay Kaplan, Willie James Jennings, Magda Teeter, and Tudor Parfit have shown, conceptions of Jews as dark, weak, fleshy, and fated to servitude were extended to debase people of color and authorized their enslavement. American legal arguments about the inferiority of black people, such as the Dred Scott decision, echoed European arguments about the inferiority of Jews. So it's ironic that Owens, a black woman who seek to, quote, own Shapiro, a Jewish man, with the phrase Christ is King, it's also a sign of just how badly some right-wing influencers will contort themselves for acceptance by the white boys online. So this is an interesting point to make on this author's part. And it's important because it once again reinforces my belief of, quote, of number one, the war on the right. We are caught in the middle of a civil war, and it is on a lot of different levels. It's ideological. It is a part of, and I'm talking about, it's ideological, policy ideological. In other words, how the government goes and spends its resources. But it's also within the Christian movement. So it's spiritual, you could say. And it's online. It's amongst the influencer movement. Hey there, fantastic viewers. Eric Darnley Small here, and I hope you're loving today's episode of What You Missed. You've reached the end of today's show, but don't worry, there's more show coming up. If you're watching this on YouTube, please click the bell so that you'll be notified when more content is available. You can also help the channel by clicking the like and subscribe buttons. It helps the YouTube algorithm find new viewers so that I can keep bringing you all this incredible content you enjoy. But wait, there are more ways to support the show. You can make a contribution through the show's PayPal, which goes a long way in helping produce even better content for you. And consider becoming a part of our growing community by joining our Mastodon site at mastodon.vtip.me/@whatyoumissed for more engaging discussions and exclusive updates. And here's something you won't want to miss. Mark your calendars for our live show streaming on YouTube and stream.vtip.me Monday mornings, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Your support means the world to me, and together we're making What You Missed the best it can be. Thanks for being a part of my journey.